there's this lake in Russia called Lake Baikal, and it is the deepest freshwater lake on Earth.
How deep?
Over 5,000 feet deep.
5,000 feet?
Yes.
How big is it?
It's huge.
Okay.
You should look it up.
Just for comparison, the lake closest to it is Lake Superior.
No way. Like as far as size? Oh
Not
my
anywhere close.
goodness,
Yeah.
dude.
Oh,
That is wild.
no, thank you.
Dude, what is down there?
You're about to find out. 1982. This is a classified document that got released to the public in 2000. It was in the Soviet government, like a classified document. So these Soviet divers in 1982 were doing these diving routines or whatever in the lake, in Lake Baikal. And they're down 50 meters, 164 feet down. All of a sudden, out of the depths, they said there were these 6 humanoid creatures, and they described them as wearing these tight, metallic-looking suits, 9 feet tall, and wearing like these like weird jelly helmets.
So they're just floating in the water.
They just come up as they're they're like here, and they just come up.
Scariest possible thing you could see at that moment, for sure.
And what these divers decided to do, apparently as like a, what the heck is that? They like had a net or something, and so they tried to catch one of them, and then like all these things did something to where it caused this force field and shot all these divers up to the surface like almost instantly. They all got the bends.
Oh no.
It was 7 divers. 3 of them ended up dying.
Oh my gosh.
And then the rest were basically silenced from ever speaking about what happened. The Soviet Union did not want anyone to know what they saw.
But yeah, Derek, he's Navajo. So he starts dating this girl, and he's a Christian. He's like doing all this work with like youth camps and all this cool stuff. The girl's father is like incredibly like traditional in the like Navajo faith and stuff. Anyways, and so he doesn't like that they're dating. He's traveling for this volleyball tournament. He's way out of town, and his grandmother, her old home is in this city that he's in for this volleyball tournament. He's like, I'm just gonna crash here, and the door to the house, no one has a key, and so there's a window pane that they can slide, and that's how the family uses the house. They literally just slide this pane over, put their hand in, and open the door. So anyways, it's late. He goes over there, opens the door, it like creaks, and he puts his hands, unlocks, goes in the bedroom, and he starts to fall asleep. And as he's about to drift off into sleep, he hears the same window pane sound. And he's like, okay, that's weird. And, if a house is left, empty, you start to wonder, like, are people breaking in? Like,
Yeah.
it could be something that someone discovered. And so he has a piece on him, Chambers one, he's ready. And he said he sat up in the bed, just like waiting to hear the next sound. So he sits up quietly, and then hears he heard the glass move. Now he hears the lock jiggling, and he's like, okay, it's not in my head. This isn't like an animal. This is something that's manually opening the door. And he said he sits up in bed and just waits for what seems forever for something to move. And then he hears it. He doesn't hear footsteps. He hears what sounds like hooves, like clack, clack across the floor. And he's like, okay, I'm dreaming. Like, this isn't real. This can't be real. Like, kind of closes his eyes, tries to shake out of it. 2 seconds later, click, clack, freaks him out. And so now he's like switched in. He's gone from flight or fright or whatever to like, now I need to confront this thing. So he takes the gun and runs out of the thing. And really similarly to Hardy's story, something just crashes out the house. He's like, something was in here. Don't know what it was.
He heard it run away, right?
Yeah, he heard it run away. And sure enough, looked at the door was like kicked open. The window was slid open. Something had come in, but he locks it all down. And he's like, I think he like rationalized in his head, someone just had some really weird shoes, realized someone was in the house.
Some chicken and stilettos
or
something.
yeah. He's like, okay, whatever, that's that. Well, the next day, his aunt comes over, and she's checking on the property. They've got like some farm animals, and she saw that he was parked there, and they just start talking, and he's like, craziest experience. And she was like, they're walking around. She's like, well, come check on the sheep with me. Tell me the story. And as he's telling the story, they walk up on what's supposed to be where the pregnant sheep was, and it had a lamb in the night, and the lamb, for YouTube's sake, I'm not going to say what had been done to it, but just grotesque, like mutilated, and I'll leave it there. And he finishes the rest of his story, what he heard, and she stopped him. These are both Navajo people, and she's like, I know what visited you last night.
Oh my God.
And she said, if it was to revisit you, it will take something of yours and bind it because it will be able to come back to you. It'd be able to come back to you if it had something of yours bound with something of its. You know, he's like looking for his phone, his keys, like all these like random things that might have been taken. And he has like a nice pen for work, and he realizes his pen isn't on him. And so they just start digging, and underneath, like in the crawl space, he finds a glass jar with fur wound around his pen. It was bound. They believe skinwalkers are hired or petitioned by the Navajo people to oppress people. So he believes that his girlfriend's father had asked a skinwalker to oppress him. Basically, this dude, he works in a sugar plantation in Hawaii. All the sugar plantations have become other businesses. And so this dude, like, I think he's on Kauai. He like lives up in the mountain. He rides a bike through this old kind of like stone wall ruins area, but it's his morning commute every day. And he's going down this road, and he hears over the wall's edge, he just hears voices. And this is like everybody kind of like flies through, and he's like, it's really weird that there would be someone over in this area. And so he stops and he looks over, and he describes these like human-ish, but like 2 to 3 foot tall, makes no sense like what he's looking at. And they're speaking in some language he doesn't understand. And he steps on a twig. They look up, they see him, and just disappear into the jungle.
What are they?
They're called menehune, and I'm not Hawaiian and never lived there, so I probably just said that slightly wrong, but it's spelled exactly like that. Basically, all over Polynesia, there are these stories. So this is like a side tangent. There's another story of a guy who was like cave exploring, and then he realizes, he's like, no one goes out here. Barely anyone's in shape enough to get out to like where he is. And then he sees his stride is about 2 foot at a casual pace, and he looks down, and he said a footprint, like a set of footprints the size of what I would call like a 2 to 3 year old, literally half the stepping of mine. And he's in this cave, and out of the cave wall way back is this like stone bench and like some other fixings that only make sense for someone who is Hobbit sized. We'll say that.
Yeah.
The cult of the Black Cube, better known as the Saturn Death Cult. And so I've been trying to figure out like how to talk about it.
Yeah.
But basically, it's this theory that the global elite worships the dark side of the planet Saturn and uses occult symbols in modern institutions, and it's been going on since basically creation.
Yeah.
So like it's basically started with the fallen angels, and it all revolves around the god Saturn. And I apologize to people that are very well versed in Greek mythology and stuff, but what I saw was the god Saturn, one attribute of him is that he gave birth to all these Titans basically, and he became jealous of them that they would try to overthrow him, so he ate all of them.
Cool.
But this god Saturn is also the god Baal, the god Molech.
Oh gosh.
And is prevalent in basically every ancient and modern satanic, all this stuff. So like the planet
So
Saturn.
Saturn is Satan.
Saturn is Satan.
Basically,
They
yeah.
think it translates from Satan or vice versa. But the black cube, I'm like, where's the black cube come into this? There's like this dark spot on the top of Saturn that is in the shape of a hexagon. And if you take the hexagon, which is a 2-dimensional shape, and you make it a 3-dimensional, it makes a cube. I'm like, well, that's interesting. But then the whole thought of it is that the god Saturn is the god of time, he's the god of materialism, the god of death, enslavement.
Yeah.
And what was crazy is this whole concept of the cult of the black cube is that if you go to basically any major financial district within the world, they all, including CERN, which is not a financial district, but they all have a monument of a black cube in their financial districts.
No way.
What?
That's weird.
Yeah, and so CERN also has this black cube shaped monument in front of CERN. They believe that this worship of it is that they're able to tap into this realm or this deity to be able to enslave the masses. And so part of it was they believed that the Federal Reserve was based off of that, and so it would be slave to debt. And that was this whole going back to Saturn was this slave to debt, slave to materialism. But you see it throughout just so many cultural things, so many religious things, like the black stone in Mecca, you know, where they all circle it. So that's a giant black stone.
Yeah, the big one where they all pray in front of it.
I'll look
Yeah.
Apparently has, that.
But a lot of it has to do with child sacrifice too. Again, it connects to the god Molech, Baal, all that stuff. So they're talking about in like Rome, Saturn, the god Saturn, they would do these mock sacrifices to, especially child sacrifices.
Yeah, big time.
And then Greece, it was Kronos, who they would also do sacrifices to. And then obviously we know Baal, right? Who is the god where they had the hollowed out belly with they would put the infants into. And then Molech, like in Bohemian Grove. And so they're saying that it's a basically all-encompassing cult to the god Saturn or Satan.
Yeah.
That is part of this very ancient divine knowledge, this purest bloodline. So it goes into the whole conspiracy of like these monarchs and stuff in their bloodlines of like they've known how to tap into this deity and like control everything, control the masses through whatever, especially financial debt and all that stuff.